Let's see. Hi, everyone. I'm Bridget Peoples, and today I have Sara Drake, an amazing medium or intuitive, as she likes to call it. And also, Sara has had two near-death experiences that we'd like to share and talk about today. So welcome. Thank you for joining me, Sara.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So what I would like to ask you is, wow, NDEs as a child, what was that like? What happened?
Well, so there's two ways to approach this. One is in the order of when they happened, and the other is in the order of when I remembered them. So which would you prefer?
Way it happened and then how you remember them, because that's very interesting.
So the first one actually occurred when my mother was pregnant with me.
Okay.
I did not remember it until I was doing this thing called rebirthing, which is now called conscious breath work.
Yes.
By Sara Drake. And I don't need to get into that, but it's a breathing technique that often brings up cellular memories to release, like any traumas to release. So I remembered it when I was in my 40s, but it was a cellular level flashback.
Oh, wow.
So which as an analytical person, I can't negate in any way, shape, or form, because the adult me's watching my body go through this, and I had absolutely no control over anything related to my physical body, which was going through what actually it experienced in utero. And that's when I actually had the memory of what happened. I didn't have any conscious memory until that flashback in my 40s.
Wow.
So I was born and spent my first 14 years in a little town in West Virginia called Huntington. And people may have heard of that because of the Marshall University football team in the early 70s. They were playing Duke University, and on the flight back, they had a little problem and they crashed into a mountain.
Oh my goodness.
That's because, and this is a little humorous, a little bit true, a little bit exaggerated.
Right.
In West Virginia, they cut off, in those days, because it was all propeller planes, right? They cut off the top, or they blast off the top of a mountain, pave it, and call it an airport.
Oh.
I remember as a kid, 2-lane road all the way, literally like a switchback going. It's not like that today. They've got a highway by it now, but we're talking in the 50s.
Yeah.
So I always knew about the plane crash that my parents were in. Now theirs wasn't obviously as bad as Marshall University's, but what happened is they had gone to Chicago for some business, and mom went with dad this time. She was 4 months pregnant with me, but she looked like she was 8 months.
Oh, wow.
And obviously in maternity. And I think I was her third pregnancy. That she actually had one before me, but she lost that one before she even knew she was pregnant.
Oh,
so
okay.
That didn't really stretch things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she was in maternity already at 4 months. And they were flying back again, a propeller plane, and it had snowed because it was February. In those years, there was lots of snow everywhere, unlike today, where you never know where it'll turn up.
Yes. So true.
And the pilot overshot the runway. And they didn't clear runways in those days, and they didn't de-ice planes in those days. So he overshot the runway and kept going to the edge, and then tilted down, and the plane went down nose first.
Oh no.
Caught on a ledge. I believe it was 100 yards down the side of the mountain. So nobody was hurt. But in 1956, they didn't know that you put the seatbelt under the belly. So her seatbelt was over the belly with an extender, right?
Yeah.
So they are literally, because the plane's nose down, they are literally in their seats, like this is their head, and they're, sitting, because So
Yeah.
they're hanging from the seat belts. And they
Oh,
eventually got everybody out and up the mountain. They were very worried about her, of course.
yes.
And they were worried she was going to lose the baby. I believe she had a little bit of bleeding, so there was some scare going on there,
Yeah.
especially since she had just lost one. But obviously, I'm here.
Yes.
Oh,
You were meant
now,
to be.
what I experienced that I learned in the flashback, literally, the flashback started with me being in utero, in the amniotic fluid, facing my twin sister. We were identical twins. Her
Oh,
finger broke off and was floating
oh,
the amniotic. And that's what I saw. I freaked out. I take my umbilical cord and do this, choking myself.
uh-huh.
Now, in my 40-something-year-old body,
Mhm.
I was wearing a nose plug, right? I took that and started choking myself with that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was very strange. And the adult me is going, what is going on?
Yeah.
And all of that. And I don't remember all the details because I was in an altered space, but I think I was thrashing around and physically freaking out in this
Yeah.
adult body, and nobody knew what to do.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'm seeing this finger floating off, but my brain knows I'm an adult and
Yeah.
it's a flashback,
Yeah.
but my body's trying to choke itself. So I hear a female voice going, it's okay, mommy's here,
Oh,
over and over and over. And it felt like somebody was patting me on the head, gently trying to help me calm.
oh.
Nobody was around me. I asked everybody, was that you? Was that you? No, nobody
It
was
was
around
mom.
me.
Yeah. It was your
So my
mom.
mom was still living at this time, by the way, my
That's okay.
birth mom.
They know, you know.
So I followed my twin into the light, and it really
Mm.
was very much like a tunnel
Yeah.
of radiant light, not like what we have here. It is
Right.
such a different kind of light.
Yes.
It's more like a living, breathing essence of energy.
That's so
So
beautiful.
I call it radiant light
Mhm.
because I don't know what else to call it,
Yeah.
basically. Um, and that's kind of what we experience when we see what some people call angels.
Mhm.
Not always. I've had angels show up that looked like people,
Right.
very tall people, but they didn't have all that light around them. And I've had others that did, right?
Mhm.
But so the next thing I'm aware of, I hear all this beautiful singing.
Oh.
I'd never heard it before. What I found out later, that
Mhm.
it's a bhajan. A bhajan is an Indian from India, religious, repetitive song of worship.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Basically.
wow.
So Hindu, I don't know, but because I've not really studied it, but I believe it's Hindu. And it's basically one or two sentences repeated over and over and over, but it's all like glory to God or glory to um, one of their deities, I guess. This particular one was glory to Mother Earth
Oh, wow.
and the consciousness of Mother.
With mother.
And as so many people who have NDEs, it's just pure love,
Yes.
pure love. And it's like, oh, this is real kind of thing. Of course,
Yeah.
not that I had a great reference point since I hadn't been born yet, but it just, I didn't want to go back. Sorry, I did not want to go back. Then this really large oval of radiant light with kind of like a shadow of a humanoid.
Uh-huh.
I would say it was 7 to 8 feet high.
Wow.
The size is different
Yes.
there. So came to me and said, you need to go back. And I'm like, no, I like it here.
Everyone says that that's been there. It's like, no, I don't want to go back. Yes.
So, and he kept, and it felt like a he.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, no, you need to go back. You have work to do. And I'm like, no, I like it here. And finally, he said, your mother asked for you.
Yeah.
And I literally go, oh, okay, then I'll go back.
Aw.
And that was the end of the flashback. Now I literally was like shaking. It was so much energy going through my body.
Yes.
I was like this for 3 days. And I felt very vulnerable and really didn't want anyone around me except the person who I thought was the one who came over and patted me on the head and said, it's okay. She didn't, but I thought it was her.
Right. Oh my gosh.
So anyway, so that was the first one that I remembered when I was in my 40s. The second one was on my 6th birthday. We had a young woman staying with us who was from the mountains, a town in the farming community. And Marshall University in those days, in the early 60s, was definitely known as a teacher's university. That's where people went to get their teaching degrees.
Okay.
And so it's a very small town. I think in those days it was maybe 70 to 80,000. Nowadays it's like half that size.
Oh my gosh.
But a lot of students would not have been able to go to college unless a family sponsored them.
Gotcha.
So my parents sponsored her. She was in the teaching, she was getting a teaching degree. And she stayed with us for room and board. And in return, she would babysit I have 3 brothers. So she would babysit the 4 of us, or as the other ones got older and didn't need her so much, whatever. So on my 6th birthday, and I absolutely adored her parents. Her dad was an amateur magician. He always managed to pull quarters out of all of our ears. And of course, being young, we're like, oh my good. And then he'd give us the quarter. So, hey, abundance, right? But so for my birthday that year, I may have had a party as well. But on my birthday, we didn't have the party. So we were going up to visit her parents up in the mountains for the day. They were maybe 2.5-hour drive. Well, my grandfather had gotten a new car and wanted her to, which was supposedly safer. It was the first car that anybody had that was automatic steering. Is that what it's called? Automatic steering, where it's like this and you make a right turn?
Yes.
But she grew up on a farm. So this was the right turn, right? Or left, since it's
power steering.
Power steering, that's it. Sorry, still have chemo brain, right?
No, I understand. I had to think for a minute too, because we forget it's been so long. We're used to it.
It's like, the only car I've ever driven was power steering. Cars, they all had power steering. But anyway, it was the first time they had a power steering in a car. There may have been seatbelts, but we didn't have to wear them in those days.
No.
It was still in the process of catching on. So she took myself and my younger brother, who was maybe 33 months old, 32 months old, right around there.
Yeah.
And he was in the front seat on the passenger side, standing.
Oh God.
And I was in the back seat, sliding from side to side, because she was keeping us busy and entertained by looking for cows on the way.
Right.
Now, I'm highly competitive.
Me too.
Yeah, I still am, but I've learned to do it in a way where I'm competitive with myself, because I want everyone to do their personal best.
Right.
Why not?
Right.
We're all here to support each other, is my perspective.
Yes.
But in those days at 6, I wasn't quite as wise, maybe. So I'm like, oh, there's a cow. Oh, there's a cow. And I saw them all first. And I was like so impressed with myself, right? I'm good at this.
That little ego popping in.
Hey, 6 years old, got to get it somewhere.
Heck yeah.
And because I was clueless at 6, of course, this was very
Yeah.
frustrating for my brother.
Yeah.
So he got very excited when he saw a cow before I did.
Mm-hmm.
And he shot his arm out. See cow, see cow. But it was in front of the driver's eyes.
Oh no.
And you know how it's natural?
Yes.
So she jerked the wheel that direction and we went down the mountain, turning over and over and over and
Yeah.
over.
Oh
The
no.
windows were open. They don't know how, my mother was the one who told me about it. And she said, no one really understands what happened, but
Right.
they weren't hurt at all.
Yeah.
They think that as the car was turning over and sideways, you know, so that like when the driver's window was on the ground, she slipped out. And when the other window was on the ground, passenger side, he slipped out. So they were both found on the hill.
Oh gosh.
Nobody knew about me.
Mm.
So they got him because he's a baby and they rush him up the hill and somebody takes him to the, you know, this was back in the days when you could trust people who stopped.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Right? It's a different world today. So they sent him with someone to the nearest hospital and they got her up into the car and they were getting ready to take off. And she goes, where's Sarah? And they're like, Sarah who? There's a 6-year-old.
Oh no.
So they all ran, you know, those who were still there. She said it was because I talked with her. She remained a family friend until she passed. But she said it was at least 30 minutes before they found me.
Found you.
So there were 30 minutes of time on this plane missing.
Yeah, missing.
Now here's how I experienced, and I remembered it and have always remembered it in great detail.
Yeah.
My first thought was, hey, how did he see a cow before I did?
Right.
I was so shocked. And then the next thing I'm aware of thinking, because it got kind of very blurry, is confusion as to why I was underneath the front driver's seat. Mm-hmm. Now, my body wasn't, but I was.
You were.
And as I'm trying to figure that out, then I lose conscious awareness. Mm-hmm. And the next thing I know, I'm floating above a car that's up on the road. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking down into the car and I'm looking at the driver and I'm like, no, I was looking at the passenger where this young woman that lived with us was sitting. And I'm like, why isn't she sitting in the driver's seat? Because of course that's where I thought she would have been. Yeah. And I look at the driver's seat and there's this man who's like old to me. Mm-hmm. He might have been in his 40s. Maybe his early.
We were so old back then.
Yeah, he was really old.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, so I'm like, who's that man in the driver's seat? Yeah. And then I look at the car and I go, wait a minute, whose car is this? Yeah. And then I look in the back seat and there's a woman who was presumably his wife, mm-hmm. holding my body, and I'm crying. But I'm watching this. Yeah. So I look at her and I'm like, who is she? Why is she holding me? And why am I crying? And the next thing I know, I'm in my body crying. Aww. So we got to the hospital. I needed to get stitches. I had a broken leg, so I had to get a cast and blah, blah, blah. I was trying my best to behave like I knew they wanted me to behave, which was, I'm going to be fine. Yes, give me a popsicle. Yeah, I want another popsicle. Mm-hmm. You know, just like any 6-year-old would do. Absolutely. I was not traumatized at all. Wow. But I was very angry, very, very angry that they had sent me back again. And I knew I couldn't talk to anyone about it because I knew they wouldn't understand. Yeah. 6 years old, and I understood that. And I didn't understand at the time it was a vow, but I made a vow.
Yeah.
And the vow was, I'm never, ever coming back here because I have to. I'm only going to come back because I want to, and then only to help people.
Right.
So when I had cancer 9 years ago, and it turned out they thought it was a stage 1, but after the surgery, removing everything, they found it was a stage 3 aggressive cancer. I
Oh,
had already paid for a spiritual trip to Peru
yeah.
that was non-refundable.
Mm.
And it was 3 weeks after my surgery.
Oh
So
my
I could go
gosh.
into a lot of details, which is more about, and that'll probably end up eventually on my website,
Mhm.
about the power of the mind, how effective that is.
Oh,
But while I was on this trip, I had the opportunity. I don't know if people have heard of John of God of Brazil,
absolutely. Yes.
right? So at this yoga retreat near Machu Picchu, and it was created by a woman, I believe, from California. They had bought one of the crystal beds that John of God of Brazil had created, which were with crystals and the light of each chakra shining through the crystal. You lie down on a bed that's all covered in white. You have to wear white.
Yes.
And then you meditate for an hour or whatever, just lie there. I had an experience during that experience where they told me if I wanted, because there were, for a lot of reasons, I was exhausted
Yeah.
on every level. I'd been taking care of both of my parents
Mhm.
until they needed to go into supported living. My son had just broken his neck in a car accident. He's fine,
Oh, good.
but so it's like after my parents and they're all, and it was 5 years of intense challenges, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And none of that really matters with this conversation. But what does matter is I'm on this bed and they go, yes, if you want to leave now, you can, because you've completed what you agreed to complete.
Ah.
And they showed me all the people that I had touched
Mhm.
in my, at that time, I think 57 years,
Uh-huh.
56 years, however long it was. And then they go, however, and I don't know what they said after that, but I obviously chose to stay.
Mhm.
And I've had one person who channels and does musical toning to help
Uh-huh.
people with their healing process. And she channeled a lot of, you're supposed to be here, da 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 da. Yes, somebody else could do it, but nobody will do it quite like you.
You.
I have no idea what. And then a total stranger that I met at an expo who is an artist, and she does angel paintings for
Uh-huh.
people who hire her. And she told me, well, I don't usually get messages for people, but I got a message for you. And the bottom line was I've got made some kind of agreement to do something.
Yeah.
Not really sure what. I have some ideas. I have some ideas.
They make us wait.
But well, I made an agreement a long time ago because I know how agile, we'll use a nice word, agile my mind can be, how effectively I can sabotage myself.
Yes.
So the agreement with spirit or with source, however you want to describe that which is not physical, is tell me what I need to know when it's time to know it. That way I
Yes.
can't mess up, right? I can't get in
Right.
my way. So again, I do have some ideas, but that agreeing to stay nullified the vow when
Oh,
I was 6 years old.
wow.
So yeah.
I
So
hate
that's
when
why
they
I
do it to
shared the
us.
story, because it's kind of connected. It took me a while to figure that out, but it's like, oh, that, because I'm also a shamanic practitioner.
Okay.
And it's because ever since I was little, after these experiences, I didn't know what I was doing until I started thinking about it once I was an adult. I
Yeah.
could literally see the energy of words.
Oh, interesting.
And since then, because of all the studying that I've done for myself, for my own healing process, which I think bottom line is what we're all here to do, is to clean up our own backyards.
Yes.
It's more holographic, but I can see the energy patterns. And I was told when I was 14, don't name it. So I don't name it because, well, I know now why, because I'm a social worker. I've studied the brain and how the brain develops and how perception happens and how we interpret things and how all of that sets up belief systems and how those belief systems create a box, maybe a big box or it may be a very tiny box that controls how we experience our life.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
We believe, I'm trying to pick something that's neutral because I don't want to trigger anyone. So let's say if we believe that, okay, when we're 2 or 3 years old, we drank fresh orange juice, we drank too much, we ended up throwing it up.
Yes.
Maybe because we were getting a virus or something. So then if it happens a second time, it kind of solidifies the thought, oh, I can't eat or drink orange juice.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'll get sick.
Yeah.
And so if that becomes a subconscious belief system or part of the subconscious belief system, that person will never be able to drink orange juice again without getting sick.
Absolutely.
Unless they clear that belief system.
My son's that way with green beans.
Yeah, it's amazing. And no matter how, because I see when I do it to myself, maybe not right away.
Right.
But like I became sensitive to a whole lot of foods after the chemo, which kind of makes sense because it affects all your organs.
Yes, it does.
And the whole body actually. And so I even have this pattern. Like I had a banana when I visited my son in June, and I had an allergic reaction to the banana.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh, I'm allergic to bananas now. Woo! Because it's like, oh, there's another one, right? And yet it's just a belief system.
Yeah.
Yes, I had a reaction, but why? I mean, it could very well be an allergy. Makes it kind of hard to make smoothies now.
I understand
bananas, but
I understand that. Isn't that incredible? Yeah, I have certain foods that I can't eat because I know it's kiwi. My throat locks up and I can't swallow it. It just intensely swells up. So I'm like, oh, I'll just stay away from raw kiwi. I have no problem with that.
Right. No,
if I see it, I'm like, no. And I do believe that we do develop those for whatever the experiences we're supposed to have.
True.
Yes.
And sometimes, like in my case, because I'm looking at patterns.
Yes.
Where ever since I had the chemo, it's like, oh, it's tearing down because I got gout when I was vegan.
Oh gosh.
Secret. So 48 hours after my last chemo, I have a flare up of gout.
With vegan food? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I wasn't eating any soy, so it's not like it was super high protein, right?
Yeah.
A year after that, I became diabetic. A year after that, I got fatty liver disease. I think 2 years after that, maybe 3, I had emergency gallbladder removal surgery.
Oh my goodness.
Where they found out I had cirrhosis of the liver, which is a little bit ironic since I'm allergic to alcohol and have been for over 40 years.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't drink alcohol. And they've told me for years I have a fatty liver. They're like, how much do you drink? And back then they didn't believe me when I said, oh, well, I don't drink. And they're like, well, you have to drink. You have a fatty liver. I'm like, no, actually, I don't drink. I pretty much water and coffee, and that's about it. Soda once in a blue moon. If I'm having pizza, I have to have soda with it. That's just how it is. But other than that, I'm not a big pizza either.
in spite
Me
of
too.
the, got to put it near my face, the Starbucks cup, I get this cup because it's a pint, and I
Yes.
use true lime, which is dehydrated lime,
Uh-huh.
and one in my pint of water is the perfect balance.
See, exactly. We know what we like. I
So,
love water. I'm a huge Aquafina fan myself.
oh, I loved Aquafina, but that's more of a, well, I think it started out as a West Coast thing. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's
it's
where I
funny
found
because
out.
people, but it's just water. I'm like, no, actually, it's different. Water tastes different.
Yes,
Everyone, it's
different
different
water.
versus the cheap brand. What brand is this? I think this is Costco or something or Walmart that tastes different. So there's certain
Yeah.
waters that are close, but like when they're out of Aquafina at the store, I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? But we're on a well. Our well water's really good, but I don't have time to fill bottles all day long, so much
Right,
space to refill.
exactly.
So I don't do that. I just kind of grab my bottle and go. And back in the day, I mean, as children, we never drank water. It was like, oh God, it's water. And a lot of people feel that way. And I just laugh because since water bottles became a thing, gosh, my kids drink it only. They don't drink a lot of sodas. They drink waters. And my grandkids,
Yeah.
they love water. And I'm just like, yay.
The only
But I,
thing that the body really likes in terms of, the mouth likes many things, but the
mhm.
body gets dehydrated if you don't drink
Yeah, if
enough
you
water.
don't drink enough water. Yeah, I love my water. I'll drink it all day long. But I did want to ask you, you brought up John of God. Oh, I love it. So I had an experience. A gal had also went to John of God. This is about 20 years ago. And it's kind of how you said, you couldn't respond when you were having that experience. You knew it was going on, but you really were like motionless. You're just kind of locked in that and choking, right? This woman had gone to John of God with her husband to get him healing. And she was this little tiny thing, probably 5 feet tall, 4'11". Just her handshake was just so gentle and just very, just there, and very meek. And so she started all of a sudden, she sits down, she was going to be the guest at the church because it's a metaphysical church. And
Right.
I brought in my mother, who's like misjudgment, right? And I'm thinking, oh, so all of a sudden this lady starts talking in tongue. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I didn't want to watch this, right? I'm just like, what's going on? And my mom was there and I'm thinking, oh God, she's really going to say something. And I could feel somebody hold my chin and I couldn't move my head or anything. I could feel the strength of them holding me, having me watch this woman talking in tongue. And John of God, when she went to John of God, he obviously did something with her. She was in the white, and she was just in line. And he walks up and stops at her and knocks on her head and did something. And she got this amazing healing and this amazing gift she had gotten. And I remember watching her talking in tongue and doing things. And I can see this like Aborigine man with like a thing in his nose, like
The bone.
yes, a bone. He's got the bone necklace on. He was a big guy, grass skirt, and he just when he walked, and he had a lot of tribal stuff on his face. And he's a massive man, strong as oh my gosh. And I'm looking at him and I'm looking at her, and I don't really see her because he takes over her space. Then he gets up, walks towards me, knocks on my head, blows in my face, and whistles, and then taps on my heart and my head and just kept blowing in my face, grabs a hold of my head and does this. And I literally felt punch drunk. I was like, oh my
Oh,
God,
yeah.
after I was done, the amount of strength this woman had was incredible. And I'm just like, what the hell's going on? What just happened? And after that, I think before that, the ego part of my intuitiveness and my psychic ability was really like, well, I'm a psychic too, type of thing. And after that, it was like completely different. Everything is from the heart. It takes you to a
Mhm.
different place. It's genuine. It's not about, oh, look at me, I want acknowledgement. It's like, no, I need to have a message for you to help you. So a lot of times people that cross will come for me to give a message to their loved one. Those ones I cannot control. I kind of have an agreement with them that because you graciously come to me to give a message, I'm happy to give it. I only charge if people come to me for a reading, and I really try to respect people's boundaries. And sometimes they don't care. I'll be in Vegas on the street and they'll be like, go to that woman right there. And I'm like, no, and they make me do it anyway. So I'll do it. But when it comes to psychic stuff like you, without permission, I don't do it. And so a lot of
Right.
my coworkers know what I do. I work in senior, like your parents need in senior care. I work in that industry. So a lot of my coworkers, be like, she does this. And they'll like, so what are you getting on me? And I'm like, nothing. Well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I don't have your permission, number one. And number two, I don't want to know your personal business, you know? So I really don't read people. So I'd explain to my boss, because it took me 3 years to hire you because I don't want you to read me. I know you're a gifted medium. And I said, you do understand the difference between medium and psychic, right? And so I told her what the difference was. I said, so I don't read anyone. However, my guides do tell me if you're hiding something from me. And they basically just say, look out or be aware. Something's up.
Right.
And that's pretty much what they tell me. So about a week ago, she had gotten something done and she didn't want me to know because I guess she thought I might be upset with her. I don't know, which I'm not, because it's her body, her decision, you know, and that's really how I feel. So as I'm walking, I go, you sure you're okay? She didn't look good. And she goes, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, okay. And I get to the door and I kind of pop my head back and look at her and I go, my guides tell me you're lying to me. And I walked away and she goes, I knew it, you know, and I just laughed. I says, no, they just said that there's something up, just to be aware that you're going through something. I go, and that's all. And I says, but when it comes to the loved one crossing over, coming through, I'm going to give that message because that's our agreement. You know,
Well,
do you have that as well?
yes, I do. My favorite story is when I was working as a secretary
Mhm.
at American Express, the North Carolina regional office, which is no longer in existence.
Right.
And I worked in the telephone center,
Mhm.
but the regional office had several sections. And then they had a floor where the VEPs and the
Uh-huh.
president, that's where their offices were. And they had their own executive secretaries.
Uh-huh.
Well, when the executive secretaries would go on vacation, different secretaries at my level, they called us admin assistants,
Right.
would step in and do their job
Uh-huh.
while they were on vacation. So this was my week filling in. And I'm doing, you know, just type, and the desks are far away. So it's not like you can have a conversation with anyone.
Yes.
So I hear this voice that one of the supervisors on the telephone, because I
Uh-huh.
didn't really, I knew who she was, but
Uh-huh.
we had very little interaction. We didn't really know each other, whatever. So she comes up and talks to the secretary all the way at that end, right? A good 40 feet away. And I hear that inner voice, right? Go,
Yep.
offer to put your hands on her. The energy manipulation. People
Yeah.
call it healing, but what it is just running energy through
Yes.
a blockage to facilitate, at least that's how I interpret it,
Yes.
to facilitate. It's sort of like having a kink in a hose and you have to clean out that kink for the water to run through it. So it's when
Yes.
energy gets blocked, it creates dis-ease or disease or some
Mhm.
type of imbalance, emotional, physical, or mental. And I'm like, is it okay if I swear?
Absolutely.
So I'm sitting there typing away going, oh, hell no. This is American Express and this is Executive Row.
Right.
I'm doing
Uh-uh.
that. Now, I'm not saying this out loud. I'm, you know,
Right.
having this conversation
Yes.
inside. And they're like, no, you're going to do this. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
hey, Jose, not doing this.
I'm doing it.
And then I started feeling pain.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're going to do this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. Anyway, shorten the story, because I am a storyteller. I am a novelist, shopping that first book right now. This kept going on until the pain got so intense.
Yeah.
And they're telling me we're going to make it worse and worse and worse.
Yep.
And you're not even close to what she's feeling
Yeah.
until you agree to help her.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, because I always make deals. Well, maybe not so much now, but in those days, always made the deals, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, if you bring her over here to me and have her actually talk to me, which I know never is going to happen because she never
Right.
has before, then I'll bring it up, right? So anyway, she comes over and she's like,
Yeah.
Sarah, how are you doing? And I'm like,
damn it, you.
Yeah. And so I'm like, are you by chance in pain? Like right here? She's like, how did you know? Yeah, let's not go into that, but would you be interested in? So yes, that's the most dramatic one, but all the time. In fact, it's actually hard up until I learned to love myself more effectively
Yeah.
and in more of a balance. It's like if the information comes up, I'm going to share it because
Mhm.
that's what we're here to do.
Yes.
And I've never, rarely, I charge for when I teach things. Like I've got 50 years meditation. So before COVID,
Right.
would teach meditation classes. I charge for that.
Yeah.
But I didn't hang out a shingle until about 2, 3 years ago. And
Oh,
not
wow.
literally,
Yes.
but
I
saying
know
that
it's shingle.
I do readings.
Yes.
So, but my readings, I mean, years ago, I was told by a teacher of metaphysical stuff. She said, we're all either teachers or we're healers,
Hmm.
but all healers are teachers
Yep.
and all teachers are healers. It's just one is the forefront. You, Sarah,
Yes.
are a teacher.
Yes.
So while I know numerous healing or energy techniques,
Mm.
um, my job is to share the knowledge. So,
Yeah. Share the knowledge. Yes.
yeah.
I definitely teach as well, where I never thought I was a teacher, but absolutely.
Oh,
My
absolutely.
kids, yeah, my kids are, one of my kids, my middle son, he's a healer. He used to put his hands on me whenever I stressed as a child. He's put his hands on my shoulder and instantly gone. And I'm like, and so I was called the magic fingers. He's like, you need my magic fingers, mommy? Yes,
Oh,
you know,
how
now he's
sweet.
30. And I try to tell him because he's an empath. And he's like, I got this pain here, I got this pain here. And I just look at him and I go, I need you to put yourself in a tube of white light and bounce everybody else's energy off and just focus that. And then tell me if you still have that pain. And so every once in a while, when he remembers to do, he's like, yeah, it's not mine. And he's learning.
Let me share because I am an empath,
Uh-huh.
but it was in the days when we didn't talk about this stuff. I
Right.
didn't even know the word until Star Trek series. And I have it on my website as to which episode it was, but it's called The Empath
Uh-huh.
of the original series That's when I learned what an empath was. And I'm like, that's me, not
Yes, that's
literally.
me. I'm
I
gonna write
didn't
that down too for him.
literally, yeah, well, check out the website because I have the episode on there. But so I had to learn on my own to a large extent. So
Myself
what
as
I would
well.
suggest, because there's so many empaths out there, and many
Yes.
of them I believe will be drawn to your show. So the most effective tool, of course, is love, which is why it's so important for us to clean our backyard so that and that's
Yeah.
not literally, although for
Right,
some
right.
people it may be.
Mine needs a big clean. Not for that reason. I got 7 dogs out there turning it up right now.
7, wow.
Yeah.
But 2 things. One, work on yourself to clear out all those issues so that you're
Yeah.
more and more and more in a space of love. And I can share a story about how powerful being in that space is in a minute. The other thing I would suggest doing is not just that white light, but on the outer edge
Mhm.
of that oval that you surround yourself, have mirrored silver light,
Okay.
but it's light is as shiny as a mirror
Uh-huh.
and reflective, and have that face out, not towards you, but facing out.
Right. Facing up.
So when you go into a crowd, you
Mhm.
make sure, first you want to make sure you're anchoring yourself.
Oh God, yes. I learned that because I haven't been doing it and I'm feeling it. So yes.
Yeah, and it only takes, the technique I created only takes 4 breaths,
Yeah.
literally. So it's something that can, something that can be done I'm getting told to share it. So you
Yeah.
breathe in through your heart, shoot it down when you exhale, and tie it to the heart of Mother Earth.
Okay.
That's breath 1. Breath 2 is you breathe in your heart, and when you exhale, shoot it straight up into the heart of source of everything. You want to call that God, that works too, doesn't matter.
Right.
and tie it there. Then the third breath originates from source, comes down the line into your heart, and then when you exhale, it goes down into the heart of the earth. So we are the conduit between the heart of the earth and the heart of everything.
Yes.
And then the fourth breath, it comes from the heart of the energy, comes from the heart of the earth up into your heart, simultaneous with the heart of source coming into your heart. And as you exhale, it goes, all that light and love goes to every, I say, particle of my beingness, because there's multiple dimensions that we exist on.
Yes.
So you don't want to limit it to just the physical.
So that's very helpful. He drives for Amazon. So he's constantly, touching people's energies or packages and, everywhere this is
also intense.
Yes, it's very intense. And he's still, as a young man, he's, 30, he just got married. His wife has a lot of her own, challenges. She's beautiful. I absolutely love her, but she's very sensitive to a lot of things. And so he's very protective of her. And I'm like, you have to understand that when she's having a hard day or something's happened, she brings it with her and it shoots out to you, and then you physically feel it. You have to understand how to release that person, realize it's not yours. He would go to the emergency room with heart palpitations. He used to take him 4 times in like a month and a half to the ER. And they're like, he's not drug seeking, but they're afraid that he's drug seeking. I'm like, he's not asking for anything. His heart rate will go up so high that he just,
Lavender.
Okay.
Through a water-based diffuser.
Okay. Lavender through water-based.
Lavender only for the first, because they want to have kids. So only for the first hour or so when they both get home from work. Now,
okay.
And those who were listening to this understand that these are specific to these situations. That's what I do. I started out as a special education teacher, so I'm very much into individualization.
Yes.
Because and there's a lot of reasons, and it would take another 2 hours to just touch the surface of them.
Yeah.
But we all have created the tangle energy patterns within our system.
Yes.
Uniquely. So it makes sense that it would be unique to us to untangle them.
That's true.
But in their case, that's what I'm getting, is especially her.
Oh yeah.
If she took like a bath bomb kind of thing, not that I'm real big into baths, but I think she likes them.
Yeah.
Lavender.
I don't know. I'll have to ask her.
Lavender. Well, if not, get a shower bomb. I've seen those too.
I haven't seen this. I'll look for her for that.
Yeah,
she's such a beautiful soul. My God, I absolutely adore her.
She's hypersensitive.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes.
And we can talk about that later because it's
right. So, but I do have a question about John of God. I'm going to go back to that. You were on a bed. You were in the white. You were on the bed. What awakening? Because you're already awake. But what did you notice your abilities go to after that experience? I guess is a question.
Well, keep in mind. Okay, I'm not typical. If you're going to compare, and I think everyone's unique. I think everyone's path is unique. I have someone that I mentor. She literally awakened almost instantly, and she's still integrating, but it was like, total, it's like, whoop, I'm here.
Yes, everyone's is different. Absolutely.
Everyone's different, and the process for integrating is unique. And she's still doing that zigzag thing of, let me go back to what I used to be, because I'm familiar with that. But we all do that.
We all do that, yes. Myself guilty.
So, me too. Even after 49 and a half years of consciously being on this path.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with the same person. I went to where to study with whomever I was supposed to study with next,
Yes.
kind of thing. And it all builds on each other. After that experience, I would say the biggest thing that shifted is I was able to see more of my pride,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
my arrogance. And it's at this point, of course, that was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
But at this point in my life, 9 years ago, we were to subtleties, really, really subtle stuff.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing that I think it's very important to remember: you listen to your heart and follow the path.
Yes.
So, there's many steps to that process, but it seems to me that it was started with John of God
Mhm.
and my accepting that I'm choosing to be here on the planet.
Yes.
And it's about cleaning up my stuff and being as integrated into the purity of beingness that we all, peeling off the layers. Now, a lot of people use onion as an example. I kind of like artichoke. Because think about it. Onions, when you get to that little pearl in the center,
Mhm.
it's still an onion and it's a little pungent, maybe a little on the sweet side, but it's still an onion.
It's still an onion, yes.
But the heart of an artichoke,
Mm-hmm.
well, I like artichokes. They're even when they're better when they're not pickled. I just get a little Brianna's to it, right? But think about it. You've got the heart of the artichoke, and we're born into this world innocent and pure love. We don't know that we're physical yet. We learn that we're physical. And that's a whole brain process. That's a lot of what my website the free part of it is about, is how our brain develops from conception on. When we have an experience that we experience as traumatic, which could be as simple as a slamming door, or as traumatic as some of the things we wouldn't want to wish on anybody, neglect, whatever, abandonment. We create protections. That's how we survive.
Absolutely.
So the artichoke has that fuzzy layer on top that you don't want to eat.
No.
The heart has that fuzzy that you don't want. So that's kind of like our first level of protection. And then the artichoke starts growing those leaves, right? But those leaves have a sharp point. Even the center leaves have a sharp point. When you try to, you got to be careful when you take those babies off, right? And then those leaves become tougher, and each layer tougher and tougher and tougher, more and more like leather. So that artichoke has a really effective, protective, multiple levels of shields to that.
I like that analogy. Yes.
Innocent heart.
Yeah.
So if my theory is, if we're physically here, we got more to clean up.
Oh, I know, right? God.
Right. It's like, if I didn't have anything to clean up, why would I still be here, right?
Well, to teach others to clean up, I guess. I kind of look at it that way.
Then we become someone like Baba G, maybe, who we can, or Jesus, where we can manifest and go, hey, pay attention here.
Right. I love
I've heard
that.
many stories about both of them showing up physically and then going, bye, and disappearing.
Yes,
I've had angels experiences just like that. Experiences that other people who were with me are going, that had to have been an angel.
Right? Yes.
That weren't into metaphysics, right? Like one of them was a deacon in a Baptist church, and she's like, that had to have been an angel.
Yes, absolutely. I've seen an angel, an actual angel. I closed my eyes. I was in front of another medium. Friend of mine's aunt, she came from the UK, and this is probably 15, 20 years ago. And she asked me, she held my hands and said, close your eyes. And as soon as I do, there's this angel floating in another dimension. And it was like, oh my God. So I got to experience that. And I've also met Jesus. He came to me, I think it was in 93, 94, before the Northridge earthquake in California happened.
Ah,
So I felt earthquakes, and it was a very powerful experience. I didn't realize at that time it was out of body. It scared the crap out of me, I will say, because I had a thing against guys with beards. That's another trauma story, but but he was there. He put his hand on my husband, one hand on my left shoulder, and I just felt this sense of peace. Then we're in my son's room. He was 3 at the time. And how, if I think about it now, how in the hell did his arm touch his foot when he was at the top of the bed and we're at the end of the bed? It had to have stretched, right? So I'm like, now like, wait a minute. The same thing. He just looked at me, and I at peace. Well, a few days later, and I knew they were going to be okay. That was the biggest thing. They were going to be okay. The Northridge earthquake, the freeways collapsed.
I remember that.
Yes.
I lived in LA back in the 80s. So I
grew up in Huntington Beach. So when you said Huntington, I'm like, oh, but yes. So, but I'm sitting there and I'm going, I was telling his cousin about this, like the day before the earthquake. I said, I feel this earthquake, and I told my husband, well, my husband stayed with my sister at her house. My son stayed at my mom's house. So had they not done that, they would have been on that freeway at the time of the collapse.
Wow.
So that's how
No
I knew.
Accidents.
No, none at all. And I'm just like, that was why. And it took me, gosh, now 30 years to finally talk about that experience. So yeah,
I know it was him now.
Yeah.
I had a similar thing with 9/11, actually.
Oh, yep.
The weekend before that happened, I'm like, something's going to happen. I don't know what, but I just knew something was going to happen, and it was going to start a war.
Yeah. COVID, same thing with COVID. It was about, oh gosh, November. I was at the hairdresser. He's like, so what do you see coming? And I'm like, there's something really bad. Something major's coming in November or in March. I said, and he goes, well, is it here? I said, actually, it affects everybody on the planet. And he goes, well, what is it? And I says, I don't know, but I feel really sick to my stomach. I said, it's very intense. I said, he goes, are we going to die? I says, we're not going to die. We're fine. I said, but a lot of people will die. Yes. And this is something really major, and it's going to be a ricochet effect. He goes, well, is it a meteor? And I says, no. Well, I'm feeling that again. I'm feeling that again for this another.
Right now?
Yes. Yeah. For that storm. Yeah. And you couldn't put a label on it at the time because I'd never heard the word pandemic. And as you know, it has to go through our filter of what to call things. So you're not going to have a name for it. But yes, and I'm a little scared at this point. Feeling a little more fearful at this point.
If I might share my 2 cents.
Absolutely. And the fear could be other people.
In your case, yeah, because you pick up a whole lot from
everybody.
pretty much strongly with the US.
Yeah.
And pretty much the whole US, because you're connected to people across the country.
Yes, I am. Yes.
But you also pick it up a little from the world. Mm-hmm. So it's like 70 to 80% US and 20 to 30% the world. But so, I mean, I know last January after I was living in Colorado at the time, and my kids visited me for some reason in January. I think it was, and this is 2 years ago, or a year and a half, almost 2 years. Part of it was so I could meet my now son-in-law. I don't know if they were engaged at this point, had just gotten engaged. I don't remember, but because it all kind of blurs together, right?
Yes.
But when they left, and I was involved in many groups, and when they left, I'm like, I just knew I cannot be part of any groups anymore. And all I did was go to work and come home.
Good work and come home. Yeah.
I even had my groceries delivered.
Wow.
Just knew that I needed to do that. And part of that, I mean, realistically, I've had cancer, I've had ramifications from chemo.
Right.
It's just I'm within the range of my white blood cell, but it's the low range. So it's just smart.
Yes, it's smart. Absolutely.
It's smart. But it's interesting, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I also got, which I think is about it might have been 4 weeks, but I think it was after we moved here, which is about a month ago. Very strongly, wear your mask in public. Now my mask has the filter and change out. It has that little pocket, and you put the N95 filter. Yeah. And I do that for my protection.
Yes, for your protection.
It's for
Absolutely.
I figure I need to be responsible for my own protection. Let's be realistic. I am immune vulnerable. I don't think I'm going to get it, but I'm a big believer that an ounce of prevention is worth a whole lot more than a pound of cure, and it's easier.
Yes.
It's easier. So yeah, I've been getting very strongly to wear masks.
I like I said, I work with seniors are wanting us to force to vaccinate, which, we'll go ahead and do that part offline. But I would like for you to share really quickly for recording your website so everyone can reach you.
Oh, okay. So the important thing to remember with the website is it's still in development.
Yes, absolutely.
I've also just completed my first novel of a 16 novel series.
Wow,
While
congratulations.
being fun, thank you. It's a fantasy series, takes place in Atlantis, but it incorporates all of this information. And technically only the first 9 books take place in Atlantis.
Oh, I can't wait.
The last 7 take place in present day. And the overall story is really, now, as an educator, we are more open to things when we're enjoying ourselves. That's just, if we're having fun and there's information, we'll absorb it.
We'll absorb it, yes.
Much more effectively than if we hate it.
Yes.
No. More of those artichoke leaves, right?
Yes.
But so that's, and I actually dreamed the entire trilogy, which is now 9 books, because the first third of the first original book is already 100,000 words.
Oh my goodness.
Nobody's going to want to read a 300,000.
Where do you find the time? Oh, well, it's called Audible for me.
I literally dreamed the entire thing when I was pregnant with my daughter, who's now 32.
Oh my goodness. Isn't that fantastic?
It's taken me a while, but
yes.
A lot of it's channeled and it just flowed. And it will include a lot of that. Eventually that'll be promoted through the website and through my, when I start my podcast, which probably won't be till next year.
Yes.
Because of the book and building my website. So anyway, the bottom line is the story is about learning how, and this is the spiritual side, it's learning how to balance the yin yang, or the masculine feminine, or the intellect and intuitive. All of these are aspects of yin and yang. Yin is what we call feminine, but that's also intuitive.
Yes.
Right? And it's not gender, it's an energy pattern.
That's going to be exciting.
Pulls it in and nurtures. The yang is, let me fix it, right? The analytical. It's energy patterns. We all have both.
Yes.
So I'm using the legend of Atlantis, which, as we all know, the legend has the place getting destroyed.
Right.
As what happens when that goes out of balance, and you don't find the balance, you self-destruct. So that's what overall that story's about. And I throw in a lot of fun things like extraterrestrials, because it is fantasy sci-fi.
Well, exactly. How fun. That's exciting. My grandkids are going to love that book. So will my son.
Well, it's for adults. It is for adults, because there are some violence and a lot of the ways that discordance plays out.
Yes.
Which we see in the world today. But the important thing here is this world has created that, at this time, we've created that imbalance again.
Yes, we have.
So it requires each one of us to heal ourselves and find that, or as close as possible to the balance as we can. Yes. And that connects with the website. Part of my gift is I am very analytical, but I'm also, and have always been, intuitive. So I've always had both. And in fact, the Myers-Briggs test, right, it's been a while since, but I literally, on the original 300 question test, I think it was more
I haven't taken that yet, but I would love to. I just recently heard about it and I'm like, oh, I should do that.
Well, they do short versions now.
Oh, good.
But I literally was right smack down the middle between analytical and intuitive, which is unusual. But anyway, maybe not so much now because the kids coming in today are amazing with their.
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. I'm
But
excited.
the free part of the website is all about how literally on a physical level our brain develops,
Mhm.
then how our senses, because that's how we take in information, is through
Yes,
not just the five senses, but did you know they literally through MRIs have found out that the heart has a little brain in it?
I hadn't heard that, but I'm not surprised at all. I think
Right.
that intuitively I've always felt that.
And then the gut has more neurons than
Oh
what
my
we have
gosh.
inside our head, which is billions.
Right. That's
So that's
incredible.
the type of, like I got a gut feeling. Why do we say that?
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of the intuitive side, but that's a piece of the intuitive, not all of it.
Yeah.
So, how all of that comes together to help us deliver the belief system I referred to earlier, which either makes a tiny box or anywhere in between. It's our
Yeah.
window into the world. So, that's all the free part, because I think it's important to understand one, how our brains work and how our beliefs work. And there's no reason whatsoever
Yeah.
to hurt anyone else who has a different belief system because there's, even if it's
Yeah.
blatantly inaccurate,
Right. Oh, yes, absolutely.
it's that person has created a structure that makes sense to them. And
Yes.
who am I or anyone else to
Yes.
try and change how they've structured their world?
Yes. I try to
That's
explain that to people all the time because it's true.
right,
It,
right.
it's
Oh,
your filter. It's how you perceive the world
exactly.
and how you live in it. So I thank you so much today for your time. It's awesome. And so
So
I would
my
like
winds
people
have
to
changed.
reach.
I forgot the name.
Yes.
Mywindsofchange.com.
Mywindsofchange.com. Wonderful. So all of you, if you would like to learn more about Sara Drake, you could find her on Facebook as well, or on her website, windsofchange.com.
Not no, my winds.
Oh, my wins. Sorry about that. Mywindsofchange.com. I think you guys will love getting a chance to meet with her and work with her. So thank you and namaste.
Thank you.
Yeah.